So, the U.S. military just got paid, not by Congress, but by a private billionaire. Yeah, you heard that right. While Washington was locked in yet another political shutdown, the Pentagon quietly accepted a $130 million gift to cover troop salaries from a mystery donor who turned out to be Timothy Mellon, a reclusive Trump megadonor and banking heir. The headlines called it patriotism, but let's be honest, this isn't patriotism, this is a crisis. Because when billionaires start paying the soldiers, democracy stops being about votes and starts being about who can afford to write the check. Here's the kicker. The law says only Congress can fund the military, and yet the Pentagon took the money anyway. No oversight, no approval, no accountability. So the real question is, what broke inside America's funding system that made this possible? Let's back up. It's mid-October. The U.S. government is shut down. Federal workers are furloughed. True pay is frozen. And the nation that spends $850 billion a year on defense suddenly can't pay its own soldiers. In the middle of that chaos, the Pentagon makes an announcement that sounds almost unreal. An anonymous donor had wired $130 million to help cover active duty pay until Congress sorts itself out. Now, this isn't your usual donation. We're not talking about a veterans charity or a nonprofit fund. We're talking about the Department of Defense, the central pillar of American power, taking a private payment like a GoFundMe campaign.
Reporters at Politico, The Washington Post, and The Guardian dig deeper. And soon, the name drops. Timothy Mellon. If that name sounds familiar, it should. Mellon's the same billionaire who bankrolled Trump super PACs, poured tens of millions into border wall projects, and called welfare programs slavery redux. So now, the same man funding Trump's political war chest is literally paying America's troops. Think about that for a second. Within hours of the story breaking, Washington explodes. Democrats call it an assault on the Constitution. Republicans, they call it patriotism at its best. Trump himself praises Mellon as a great American who stepped in where weak Democrats failed. Cable networks light up. CNN anchors ask whether the U.S. military just became a privately funded force. Fox News spins it as a billionaire saving Biden's mess. And buried in all this noise, the real danger hides in plain sight. Because this isn't about one donation, it's about who controls the power to pay the armed forces. Under the Constitution, only Congress can allocate military funds, period. But this move effectively bypassed Congress, setting a precedent that could turn the Pentagon into a playground for political donors. Legal experts start warning. If one billionaire can pay soldiers, what's next? A defense contractor paying for missile programs? A foreign ally donating to a U.S. base to buy favor? You see how slippery this gets?
Inside the White House, things get tense. Reporters press Press Secretary Sarah Isgur for details. Who approved it? When? Under what legal authority? She dodges, says the donor was a friend of the president. A friend. That's all we get. Meanwhile, House Democrats prepare subpoenas. The Oversight Committee, led by Representative Ramey Raskin, demands full documentation of the transaction. But Republicans block the request, calling it a distraction from real issues. And here's the twist. Even inside the military, officers are reportedly uneasy. Some call it a morale win, soldiers getting paid. Others whisper the unthinkable. Are we being bought? This story isn't just scandal, it's systemic failure disguised as generosity. Because when a government can't pay its soldiers, and a billionaire can, that's not a donation, that's a warning sign of collapse. And it's not the first one. Remember the government shutdown of 2019? Thousands of Coast Guard families sold furniture to survive. Back then, Congress swore never again. Well, it just happened again. Only this time, someone rich enough to step in and rewrote the rules. And the worst part? The public's too divided to notice. Half of America's cheering, the other half's panicking. But here's the kicker. They're both missing the same terrifying truth. Because what's happening right now isn't just a political stunt. It's a test case, a test to see how far billionaires can go before Congress loses control of the government's wallet. If this gift stands unchallenged, it could become the new normal. Private donors filling public holes with zero accountability.
So here's the part nobody's talking about. What happens when the next billionaire decides he should choose who gets paid and who doesn't? The next morning, Capitol Hill wakes up like a battlefield. You've got Democrats accusing the Pentagon of turning into a political slush fund, and Republicans framing it as a heroic act that exposed how broken Congress really is. Senator Elizabeth Warren goes on MSNBC and says point blank, if a billionaire can pay the U.S. military, we no longer have civilian control, we have corporate control. Meanwhile, Trump doubles down on Truth Social, calling Mellon a patriot, stepping in while the left shuts down the country. Inside the Pentagon, chaos. Legal advisors scramble to find loopholes in federal law that could justify accepting the money. But here's the thing, there are none. Federal appropriations laws are crystal clear. No outside funds can replace congressional authorization for military pay. So either the Pentagon broke the law or someone in the White House pressured them to make it look legal after the fact. Reporters dig deeper and find that Mellon's $130 million wasn't just generosity. It came through a patriotic fund tied to private contractors with defense interests. Translation, it wasn't just a gift, it was a bargaining chip. Then the backlash hits social media. Hashtag Who Owns the Troops trends for 2 straight days. Veterans post angry videos. We signed up to serve America, not the billionaires funding it. Civil rights lawyers demand an independent probe, warning this could violate the emoluments clause if any part of the donation had foreign-linked funds.
Congressional Democrats push for an emergency hearing, but Speaker Mike Johnson blocks it, calling it a witch hunt. The irony, even some Republicans privately admit this looks bad, because once precedent is set, anyone with money can step in, left, right, or foreign. Financial analysts warn of something even bigger, a crack in the sovereign guarantee. If the Pentagon can be privately funded once, Wall Street might start pricing political dysfunction into defense bonds. In short, our America's credit worthiness could take a hit. Yeah, think about that. A billionaire's patriotic act might have just weakened U.S. credibility worldwide. But the most chilling part? This donation didn't just blur the line between public and private, it erased it. And Washington's silence screams louder than outrage. Because deep down, both parties know this. If one billionaire can do it once, every billionaire will try to do it again. So what does this really mean? Let's strip away the noise. The U.S. has always been built on one sacred rule. The people, through Congress, control the purse. When that breaks, democracy shifts from representative to transactional. We've seen versions of this before. During Nixon's years, campaign donors funded secret operations under the table, the Watergate model. During Reagan's Iran-Contra era, private networks financed wars Congress refused to authorize. And now in 2025, we're seeing the same pattern, but institutionalized. This isn't rogue covert ops. This is the Pentagon out in the open cashing a billionaire's check. Trump world calls it innovation. His critics call it corruption. But either way, it's normalization. Because once something unconstitutional happens in plain sight and nobody pays a price, it becomes custom. Here's the political calculus. Trump sees it as proof that private capital can save America from government incompetence. Democrats see it as proof the GOP is selling sovereignty to the highest bidder. And the military? They're caught in the middle. Underpaid, politicized, and now, quite literally, sponsored. But let's get darker. Imagine this same playbook during the next conflict. What if Elon Musk donates funds to accelerate a space defense program? What if defense contractors quietly top up budgets to get contracts approved faster? What if a foreign ally routes money through an American front to curry favor during budget deadlock? At that point, The Pentagon isn't American anymore. It's auctioned. And maybe, just maybe, this was the real test all along, to see how far the system can bend before it breaks. Because when billionaires start writing checks for soldiers, what's next? Buying seats in the Situation Room? Scenario 1, Congress fights back. Democrats launch a full investigation. Whistleblowers emerge. The donation is ruled illegal, forcing the Pentagon to return the money. It becomes a campaign issue. Who really funds America's defense? If that happens, this could spark a historic reform movement in government finance, the Anti-Plutocracy Act, limiting private financial intervention.
Scenario 2, business as usual. The storm fades. The donor keeps his hero badge. Congress passes a half-hearted ethics bill. The precedent stands. Next time there's a shutdown, expect new patriotic donors lining up to buy influence under the flag of generosity. Scenario 3, and the most dangerous one, replication. What if this model spreads? Private money for teachers during strikes, billionaires funding courts to ensure justice, politicians calling corporate bailouts, citizen contributions. That's not capitalism anymore. That's feudalism with PR. And no matter which path America takes, one thing's already certain. This wasn't a one-off. It was a warning shot. Because the moment the Pentagon cashed that check, the door opened, and history shows it never closes easily. So here's the real question. Was this an act of patriotism or a purchase order? Because if the U.S. military, the strongest force on Earth, can be temporarily bankrolled by one man, what does that say about the republic that's supposed to fund it? You can dress it up with words like support or donation, but deep down, this was about control, the quiet transfer of power from Congress to Capitol. And the most dangerous part? Nobody voted for it. Maybe Timothy Mellon thought he was helping. Maybe he was. But the second the Pentagon accepted that money, America's funding system cracked. And now the world's watching to see how wide that crack spreads.
So, what do you think? Is this accountability or just theater? Is this generosity or the start of pay-to-govern politics? Drop your thoughts below, because if this story doesn't shake you, nothing will. And trust me, this scandal is only getting started.